Today, I've got a heavy question for you, and it's not an easy question that I'm going to hit you with, but it was a question that I was hit with today, and I want to pass it on to you because it's an important question to answer. And essentially, the question goes like this: what if today was it? Now, what if today was the last day that you got? That what if there was no more tomorrows? That whatever happened today was it. Today was when your time here is done. Now, that's I just told you, that is a really hard thought. And for me, my story actually began with this hard question because it was answered and illuminated for me when Jay Leno left The Tonight Show. And this was about when I was 2013, 2014. So it was the final time he left The Tonight Show. And all these people showed up at the end on that last show to show gratitude for Jay being in their life. And in this moment, I was thinking, you know what? If my time was up today, if today was it, I don't think anybody would care to show up and say, like, I am so glad Ben was here. Now, that is a really dark thought as well. To give you some idea of how dark and big it felt, is if you flash back to the Independence Day movie in 1995 with Will Smith, that movie when the alien attack ships come out of the clouds and settle in over the city, and you're looking up at that ship, and they were thinking, like, how do you move a ship that big when I'm just one person? Like, what hope do we have to move a ship that big? That might be how you feel right now as I talk about this question. The other thought is, how do you bring that down? For me, what's the virus that's essentially going to take down the entire network? Well, for me, that started with, and if you know my story from listening to this podcast, it began with friends. I started creating friendships. I didn't have any friendships, so that was also like, you need core friends in your life in order to have impact. If no one knows you, if you don't have any basic human relationships, your impact is going to be nothing. And for me, that's where my story began. But also, I want to challenge it back to you. What if today was your last? Would you be happy with where you got? Would you be happy with the effort that you put in? Would you be happy with how much you tried? And let's actually reframe that, because I don't really like how I said it there. What would you be happy with how you lived? And I use lived intentionally because most men are told to go out into the world and make a living, but have mediocre results at living. Let me say that again. Most men are told to go out in the world and make a living and be told that it's okay to have mediocre results at living. But what if today was it? What if today you didn't get a chance to get a wake-up call that allowed you to start living your life? What if maybe this is the only chance you're going to get, this episode, this 5-minute recording of you trying to change your life? The question is a hard one, but it's an important one. And it also ties into everything that I've talked about here, because I'm always talking and tying back to things to legacy, because legacy is the solution to this problem. Is if you feel like when your time is up, you don't have a legacy, well, then you're not going to be remembered for anything. You're going to have these hard questions of, I didn't do anything significant. And honestly, the harder point, we'll put a nice cherry on top of this hard story that we're talking about here. Who's going to provide, if you make, say, $100,000 a year in salary, that's immediately gone when you're dead. That's it. Gone. Poof. Done. You don't have life insurance. There's no happily ever after when that salary goes away. Nothing. Maybe a 401k, but that's still not necessarily accessible just because you died. These are the questions that you need to be asking yourself. These are the questions that are going to get you to wake up. And I say wake up because most men are stuck in a cycle of repeat and repeat, and we never consciously think about the thoughts, the actions we take. And ask yourself, what if today was it? Where am I going? Who am I becoming? Is this someone I'm proud of? I can answer for myself. I would be sad that it would be over, but I would be okay knowing I gave it my best, that I wasn't sandbagging it, that I made my best effort every single day to impact my kids, to impact the world, to find my message, to find my purpose, to curate that purpose, to leave a message behind that others can follow. That was not me when I turned 30. Now, just 7 years later, I'm 37. I feel I've been more in touch with that idea of I'd be okay if today was it. I'd be sad, but we're taken care of. Got life insurance, got things taken care of. Kids may not be easily healed after losing me, but you know what? I was recently seeing a post from a mom that posted about having breast cancer, and she had 2 young kids, and she was having a hard time telling them. And the advice I gave her, and I'll season it with this message, is when you're in those moments where maybe you do have a diagnosis of a terminal illness coming up, to me, it's not so important to protect them from the truth. It's important to give them every last ounce of juice of the blueprint of how to live before your time is up. And I can say that if my time was up today, that I gave my best effort for all of my kids who are 10, 7, and 5, that what I know about living, they understand to their age group of what they can understand. And hopefully these podcasts continue, not necessarily continue to be published, but they continue to be an ecosystem of stories that my kids can tap into in the future. That it's not something that I put my work into that just helps you out there. This is something they can tap into when they're parents and when they have kids. They can go like, what was dad worried about back then? So it's a hard question, but I want you to think about it and let it change your intention as you go into the weekend today. Let it change your intention for who you become this weekend. What kind of decisions do you make with your time this weekend? You only get one shot to be a dad. And if today was it, would you be happy with your one shot? And if you're not, if you're pissed, good. Do something. Change. Find progress. Be progress. Whatever it may be. You have the capacity to do this inside you already. Don't wait. Let this be your wake-up call. Get outside and get living. Not making a living, but be a person that exemplifies what living looks like. And make sure your kids understand that blueprint as well, because that is how you raise confident kids to be confident adults. Guys, I am your host, Ben Cloy. I bring you 5 days a week business advice and fatherhood advice, bake them together to give you that knowledge and that little bit of juice to take you from the dad you are today to the dad you want to be tomorrow. Have an amazing weekend. We'll be back again to do it all over again next week.